Have you ever felt like you're watching your life from the outside? Like you're going through the motions, but not really choosing them? Before you dismiss this feeling, I want you to try something. For the next 30 seconds, just sit there. Don't check your phone. Don't think about what you need to do next. Just exist. If you found that difficult, even uncomfortable, then this message is for you. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover might completely change how you see yourself and the world around you. Let me tell you about a rat. This rat lived in a cage with 2 levers. One lever gave him food, the other sent an electrical current directly to the pleasure center of his brain. The rat pressed the pleasure lever over and over, thousands of times per hour. He stopped eating. He stopped drinking. He ignored everything else, pressing that lever until he collapsed from exhaustion. When he woke up, he went right back to pressing it. Eventually, the rat died, not from the electrical stimulation, but from starvation and dehydration. He had everything he needed to survive right there in his cage, but he chose the lever instead. This experiment happened in the 1950s, conducted by psychologists James Olds and Peter Milner. They thought they were just studying rat behavior. What they actually discovered was a warning about the future of humanity. Because right now, in this very moment, you and I are living in a version of that cage. The levers just look different. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. How many of your daily actions are truly conscious choices? When you wake up, your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes fully open. You scroll through updates from people you barely know, consuming their thoughts, their opinions, their perfectly filtered lives. You feel a strange mix of connection and emptiness. Then comes the coffee, not because you really need it, but because it's what you do. The ritual, the habit, the small hit of caffeine that signals your day has begun. Throughout your morning, your attention bounces from notification to notification. Each ping releases a tiny burst of satisfaction in your brain. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered this decades ago. Variable ratio reinforcement is the most addictive schedule of rewards. You never know when the next like, message, or interesting post will appear, so you keep checking. Just like a gambler at a slot machine, you're hooked on the possibility of the next win. But here's what nobody tells you about this constant stream of small pleasures. Each one is carefully designed. Tech companies employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists whose entire job is to make their products more addictive. They study your behavior patterns, track your engagement, and constantly refine their algorithms to keep you scrolling, clicking, watching. They know exactly how long to wait before sending you a notification. They know what type of content will make you stop mid-scroll. They know how to trigger your fear of missing out, your need for validation, your hunger for novelty. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that the best way to control people is to make them believe they are free while secretly pulling their strings. He was talking about political power in Renaissance Italy, but his insight cuts straight to the heart of our modern predicament. We believe we're making free choices. We think we're expressing our individuality through our consumption patterns, our entertainment preferences, our lifestyle choices. But are we really choosing, or are we simply selecting from a menu that someone else created? The psychologist Erich Fromm called this the illusion of individuality. We customize our phone cases, our coffee orders, our streaming playlists, and we feel unique. But underneath these surface variations, we're all following the same basic script. Work, consume, distract, repeat. We are told this is freedom, but Fromm saw it differently. He said that modern humans have freedom from traditional constraints like rigid social hierarchies and religious dogma, but we haven't achieved freedom to think independently, to create meaning, to resist manipulation. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's simply how the system works. Edward Bernays, the father of public relations and Freud's nephew, wrote openly about this in the 1920s. He said the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power. He wasn't exposing a secret. He was stating a fact that everyone in power already knew. Think about how this plays out in your daily life. You feel stressed, so you shop online. The brief excitement of clicking buy now soothes your anxiety for a moment. You feel lonely, so you scroll through social media. The illusion of connection temporarily fills the void. You feel bored, so you binge watch a series. The constant stimulation prevents you from sitting with your own thoughts. Each of these actions feels like a choice, but psychologist Abraham Maslow would argue that they're actually reactions. When our deeper needs for meaning, authentic connection, and self-actualization go unmet, we substitute them with inferior satisfactions. The philosopher Herbert Marcuse called this repressive desublimation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Society offers us countless ways to satisfy our surface desires, while systematically denying us what we truly need. We can have any flavor of ice cream we want, but we can't have economic security. We can watch any movie ever made, but we can't have genuine community. We can express any opinion online, but we can't have real political power. The abundance of trivial choices masks the absence of meaningful ones. Carl Jung warned about something he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. But there's also a collective shadow, the truths about our society that we collectively refuse to see. One of these truths is that our entire economic system depends on our psychological manipulation. If we suddenly became content, if we stopped constantly seeking the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next experience, the whole machine would grind to a halt. The psychologist Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps and wrote extensively about the human search for meaning. He observed that when people can't find deep meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. When they can't find pleasure, they distract themselves with power. Our society offers endless pleasures and the illusion of power through consumption, but it systematically undermines our search for meaning. We're kept too busy, too distracted, too tired to ask the fundamental questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What legacy will I leave? The behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman discovered that humans have two systems of thinking. System 1 is fast, automatic, intuitive. System 2 is slow, deliberate, logical. Guess which one advertisers target? Guess which one social media algorithms exploit? They bypass your rational mind and speak directly to your impulses, your fears, your desires. By the time your conscious mind catches up, you've already clicked, bought, consumed. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of this system is how it makes us complicit in our own manipulation. Psychologist Leon Festinger called this cognitive dissonance. When our actions don't align with our values, we experience psychological discomfort. But instead of changing our actions, we often change our beliefs. We tell ourselves we enjoy scrolling for hours. We convince ourselves that we need all these products. We rationalize our addiction to distraction as self-care or staying informed. The sociologist Zygmunt Bauman described our current era as liquid modernity. Everything is temporary, changeable, uncertain. Relationships, jobs, identities, even our values are constantly in flux. This creates a deep anxiety, a fear of being left behind, of becoming obsolete. And what do we do with this anxiety? We consume more, scroll more, distract ourselves more. The very things that promise to cure our unease actually amplify it. Here's what the ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we've forgotten. True freedom doesn't come from having infinite options. It comes from the discipline to choose wisely and the strength to resist manipulation. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, wrote that no one is free who is not master of himself. Yet we've created a society where self-mastery is seen as deprivation. We're told that denying ourselves any pleasure is unhealthy, that we deserve to indulge, that self-control is a form of repression. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi studied optimal human experiences and found that people are happiest not when they're consuming passive entertainment, but when they're in a state of flow, deeply engaged in challenging, meaningful activities. Yet our society is structured to minimize these experiences. We're either stressed and overstimulated at work or passive and understimulated during leisure. The sweet spot of engaged, purposeful action is increasingly rare. Consider how different cultures throughout history have handled the human need for transcendence. Indigenous ceremonies, religious rituals, philosophical contemplation, artistic creation. These were the traditional pathways to touching something greater than ourselves. Now we're offered virtual reality, designer drugs, extreme sports, and transformational workshops that you can buy for 3 easy payments. The genuine human need for transcendence has been commodified, packaged, and sold back to us. The psychiatrist R.D. Laing once said that insanity is a perfectly rational adjustment to an insane world. Maybe the rising rates of anxiety and depression aren't signs that we're broken. Maybe they're signs that we're still human, that some part of us recognizes the cage we're in and rebels against it. The discomfort you feel, the sense that something is missing, that's not a problem to be medicated away. That's your psyche trying to tell you something vital. So where does this leave us? Are we doomed to be perpetual rats pressing levers until we collapse? Not necessarily. The first step to freedom is awareness. Once you see the strings, they lose some of their power to control you. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need to actively reclaim your autonomy, one choice at a time. Start by creating spaces of silence in your life. Not meditation apps or guided relaxation, but genuine silence where you're alone with your thoughts. It will be uncomfortable at first. Your mind will rebel, demanding stimulation. But if you persist, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear your own voice again, not the internalized voices of advertisers, influencers, and algorithms, but your actual thoughts, your genuine desires, your authentic self. Question everything you think you want. Is that career goal really yours? Or was it planted by social expectations? Is that purchase going to fulfill you? Or are you just trying to fill a void? Is that belief genuinely held? Or have you absorbed it through repetition? The philosopher Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." In our age of constant distraction, the examined life has become an act of rebellion. Practice saying no. No to unnecessary purchases. No to toxic entertainment. No to relationships that drain you. No to beliefs that don't serve you. Every no to what you don't want is a yes to what you do want, even if you're not sure what that is yet. The psychologist Rollo May wrote that freedom is the capacity to pause between stimulus and response, and in that pause, choose. Most importantly, seek genuine connection and meaningful action. Join or create communities based on shared values, not shared consumption. Engage in activities that challenge you, that require skill and attention, that produce something real. Whether it's gardening, writing, building, teaching, or creating art, Find ways to contribute rather than just consume. The system we live in is powerful, sophisticated, and deeply entrenched. You can't completely escape it, and total withdrawal isn't the answer anyway. But you can become conscious of its influence. You can resist its more toxic effects. You can create pockets of authenticity in a world of manipulation. You can choose meaning over pleasure, depth over distraction, genuine connection over digital validation. The question isn't whether you'll be influenced. You will be. The question is whether you'll be conscious of that influence and maintain some degree of choice, or whether you'll sleepwalk through life, pressing levers until the experiment ends. If this message resonates with you, if you feel that flutter of recognition, that uncomfortable truth touching something deep inside, don't let it pass. Subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but as a reminder to stay awake. Share this with others who might be ready to see the strings. And most importantly, take one small action today to reclaim your autonomy. Turn off one notification. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Question one assumption you've never examined. The journey to freedom begins with a single conscious choice. What will yours be?